On this episode of How to Make Dinner, I'm making onion stew. This onion stew is inspired by a Bulgarian recipe called, babe?
Lучена.
Or what's the other one? I like the other one better.
Lучena Яхния.
Lучena Yakhnia. Perfect. See, I nailed it. As some of you may know, my partner is Bulgarian and I always love the opportunity to make him food that reminds him of his grandma. So I do my best to do that whenever possible. So today I'm making this onion stew. It might not be traditional as some may see it. It might not be traditional at all, but I'm doing my best based on what he's told me and based on a few recipes that we've kind of surfed around and looked at. As soon as we're allowed to travel again, we're gonna go over there and I'm gonna learn so much about Bulgarian food and I cannot wait. But until then, I'm gonna wing it and I hope you'll wing it with me. First up, let's cut some onions. Roll up my sleeves here. From what I understand, this onion stew is like a 1 onion per person kind of thing. So you build the recipe based on how many people you're feeding. I'm feeding 2 people. But I think we're really hungry, so I'm gonna pretend we have 3 people and I'm gonna use 3 onions. I'm just gonna cut them pretty roughly. I kind of wanna do like I want them to be big. I want it to be an onion stew. I'm not looking for the onions to be flavoring this stew, although they will, because they just do, because they're onions. But I want them to be, they're the main event. We do this thing at the dinner table with his son that we try to do every time we have dinner, which is to learn a new Bulgarian word of the day. Because really, like when you're learning any language, you don't need to know that many words. You need to know like 300 words or something, and then you're fluent. So we've done, what have we learned? Muzika, you can probably guess what that is. Večerja, which is dinner. Zub, which is tooth, and zubi, which is teeth. You know, I'm basically fluent at this point. So I'm going chunky, which for those of you who don't like chopping is probably muzika to your ears. Okay, that was really cheesy. Oh, this knife. I love getting away to rustic cabins, but I need to remember to bring my own knives. I brought my own camera equipment, but I didn't bring my own knife. Rookie mistake. Okay, I'm just gonna dump these in a pot to make some more room. Okay, so the pot has all the onions in it. I'm just gonna turn the heat on to medium. I know this is a hot burner, so I'm gonna keep a good eye on it. And I'm gonna add in a good 2 tablespoons of butter. You could use oil. Sunflower oil would probably be more tradish, but butter's what I've got. And then while the onions are heating up and the butter is melting, I'm actually gonna put in a good 2 4-finger pinches of salt. So that's like probably a teaspoon or so. And then I'm going to grate a carrot. So the carrot in this case is kind of like the flavor booster. So I don't want to chop the carrot because that'll make it too carroty, like it'll be noticeable in here. I want to grate it so that it kind of just melts away and I'm getting a little bit of that nice orange color and also some sweetness from it, but it's not like a carrot stew, you know? And I'm gonna put the carrot right in with the onion now. It can all kind of do its thing together. I'm also gonna grate a stick of celery and throw it in there. I've seen this done with celery root, which I am a big fan of in general, but I don't have a celery root, I have a celery stick, so I'm gonna use that. I'm just taking away some of the strings so that it'll grate easier, theoretically. I don't know, have you ever done this, taking the strings off? It's kind of overkill, but if you're in the mood. Oh dear. Also, it might just be easier to finely chop this. Yep, I give up already, I'm chopping. Finally chop a stick of celery. Okay, celery's going in. Things are starting to get nice and soft in here. Next up is the garlic and the peppers. So I'm gonna do, for 3 onions, I'm gonna do about 6 cloves of garlic. So that's 2 cloves per onion. Garlic's going in, kind of smashed and chopped. And then I have half of a red pepper that's going in too. All just to kind of support the onion, you know, in supporting roles. I'm gonna let this mixture sweat down in this pot with the lid on for about another 15 minutes. It's on medium heat, and I'm going to stir it like every 3 or 5 minutes or something, just to make sure nothing's burning. And then we'll add some more stuff to it. It's been about 15 minutes. These onions have been cooking down with the carrot and the celery and the peppers. And there were a couple of moments where things were starting to get a little dark on the bottom, so I just splashed a tiny bit of water in. This is a really thin bottomed pot, which isn't helping matters at all. Next up, I'm gonna add some tomatoes. So I just rough chopped these. You could use canned tomatoes. You could use even like blended, you know, tomato puree if you wanted. I've got regular tomatoes, and I'm adding about 1.5 large tomatoes. So it's like half a tomato per onion. Just gonna cook that, and I'm gonna bring this back up to heat a little bit. I think this stew is normally made with some red wine, but I don't have any handy, so I'm just gonna use a bit of veggie stock instead, and I'm using Better Than Bouillon because I like it. I'm always keeping in mind with products like pre-made, you know, store-bought stocks that they can be a bit salty. So I'm just gonna go a little easy on it and not use too much. This is just warm water from the tap. Should be good. I'm just gonna add this to the onions, and this is about maybe a cup and a half. And then I'm gonna bring the whole thing back up to a boil, reduce the heat, smack the lid back on, and let it simmer until I'm satisfied. I think it should go for probably like half an hour or so, but I'm impatient, so I might not wait that long. I forgot one thing, and that is savoury. So savoury is a really nice herb, and we don't tend to use it very much in North America, or at least from what I can see. For example, it wasn't even available in the store when I went looking for it today, but it's so good, and it's really, really common in Bulgarian food. It's called chubrica. So that's an important final touch. I've also seen parsley in this, but I don't have any parsley. So that's getting a stir, and it's almost done. I'm gonna put it into some bowls pretty soon and rustle up some bread. It's got a nice kind of rich body, like the broth is definitely broth, but it's got kind of a viscosity to it. And everything's just soft and melty and nice. So I think I'm gonna call it done. I really wanted some nice crusty white soft bread, but I found multigrain, so I'm having multigrain. I think bread is key here. This onion stew is just such a good example of how dinner does not have to be complicated. You know, it's a bunch of onions and a couple other veggies in a pot with some water, cooked together till everything's soft and nice. And, you know, a hunk of bread, whatever that looks like for you, or a hunk of something to dunk in it. And you've just got such a simple, delightful pleasure on your hands. Thanks for tuning in to make onion stew with me. And I hope you've enjoyed the little time in the forest we spent together. And I'll see you next time.